All right, I did it. I just more or less finished season 19 of Sister Wives, and boy, do I have a deep dive breakdown on this man. As you can see, I got the legal pad out for this one, and the notes are noted front and back. So we are just gonna get in. I might have to do 2 parts. This might be really long, so buckle up, Buttercup. Number 1, the most obvious. He never, ever takes accountability for anything. He could literally drop a cup and break it, and he would look up at the person standing across from them and go, "Why did you break that cup?" He blames the moms for turning the kids against him, completely dismisses the fact that for like 2 seasons, basically, the children were on camera begging him with tears in their eyes to listen to them and telling him their grievances and like begging for his attention and stuff. And like, no, he's acted like that's never happened. It's all mommy's fault, which is completely dismissive and disrespectful of his adult children, by the way. Number 2, he has a desperate, pathetic, one would say pathological need to destroy anyone who is disloyal to him. He's got a big thing about loyalty. He talks about it all the time. As soon as someone disappoints his expectations, he says horrible, disgusting, hurtful things. Like once his wives who he loved, once they started to leave him, he was basically like, they're disgusting and I never loved them. Just trying to like hurt them. Just like a mean little kid. He also does this thing when he's like discarding and disposing of people where he does comparisons, where he like compares Robin's family. He's like, look, that's the behaved family. Look what they get. They get me. That's what you get when you behave. It's all very gross. Number 3, delusions of grandeur. The man's deluded. He's completely fucking delusional. He talks about all these sacrifices, how all of these relationships were sacrifices, but it seems to me that his wives were always the one working multiple jobs to support the family and bring in the money, which includes the show, which he would not have without those women. So I'm not sure what sacrifices he made. Again, inside of these delusions of grandeur, he says he makes $200 an hour at some point during one of those seasons. He said, well, I make $200 an hour. I got jobs. But somehow he's just like always floating up Robin's crack and they don't have enough money to pay for the property. If you're making $200 an hour and you're working 36 hours a day, asshole, where's the money? He also sits and poses himself as being like super smart, but then he misuses words constantly. Like he constantly uses the wrong words, so he clearly doesn't know. And it's not even like close. Like he'll call a bread circus, right? And he's like sitting there looking at the camera like he's smart. And you can feel the guy on the other side of the camera being like, the hell are you talking about, dipshit? Number 4, this is a really, really, really big one. He discards people with no remorse whatsoever, including children, which is a huge red flag. He abandoned Truly, his youngest, with Christine to punish Christine, and simply because he was like, well, your mom disappointed me, so you're out. I don't love you anymore. To a freaking child. And I just read like a recent thing, and apparently she thinks that he hates her. That little girl, Truly, that sweet little girl. He constantly, like by the time you get to season 19, any kids who have moved away, he's like, well, I live here. He expects his children to come and pay court to him wherever he lives, and if they don't, then they don't exist to him, which is like horrific. He's basically estranged from all his children because he's like, they can come to me, they can kiss my ring or not be in my life. So, gross. Also, when you look at like Mary, which was an obvious discardment, he does this thing when he discards people where he basically just abuses or neglects them until they leave him, so that then it's their fault. So that goes back to that accountability thing in the process of his discarding. It's very sinister. He also does this gross thing as far as this discarding where he says to the other children, I was protecting my family, referring to Robin, and then basically saying like all his original kids, like, you guys are other. Number 5, I think, crazy manipulative with language. He is insanely manipulative with language. He straight up gaslights people constantly. Like in the breakup with Mary, he will look at Mary and be like, this is what you wanted. I didn't lead you on. I was just following your lead. Or when he looks at Robin and says, this is what you made me promise. It's very much, it's always like, look what you made me do to you. You made me do this to you. He also weaponizes therapy speak. Like by the time you get to season 19, the way he's using safe, triggered, vulnerable, he weaponizes therapy speak to basically position himself as a victim when he's very much a monster. 6, isolation of victims. Now, don't get me wrong, I dislike Robin. I think she's basically a reflection of him, but I also do believe that she's being probably manipulated, coerced, potentially allegedly abused by him. So I see some isolation there. She's the wife that he's chosen to keep. This is the precious. This is the one that obeys. So you see him isolating her away from the rest of the family. Also, the way he's basically like, well, the kids have to like abandon their mothers and be completely loyal to me and never speak to their mothers again if they, you know, want a relationship with me. Same thing. What are we on now? 7. Controlling. He's extremely controlling, and it's all about reinforcing his image. And that became obvious in one of the one-on-one breakup episodes when we heard Janelle say, oh no, he's going to get so mad I'm talking about this. So they've all been clipping their language to protect him for years. Next up, sees people as objects and as possessions. The way he uses my family to refer to Robin's family, who he's decided he's keeping while he discards the rest of his family. That obsession with loyalty as well. It's almost like, it's like a little kid with their Barbie dolls. Like, no one else is allowed to touch these Barbie dolls. It's like, I own you. When you are loyal to me, I own you. You do what I say. And we see the way he was so happy to just get rid of his kids if they didn't do what he wants. So again, that's objectification and like possession of those children. It was like, suddenly that toy is not doing what I want, so I'm going to throw it away. Next, he expects people to earn his love. We've seen that in his behavior, how he treats people who disappoint his expectations. But we heard Christine also say, the whole time I was married to him, I felt like I had to earn his love. Like I had to do things for him to love me. And if I didn't do everything perfectly, I was unlovable. He also thinks he's so special that he's like entitled to this like never ending love. And he's like the lamest, most mediocre man ever. But yeah, that's the next one. Entitlement. He feels entitled for no reason to behaviors that he's not willing to return. So he like talks about loyalty all the time, but he's very disloyal to everyone else around him. Like he goes and gossips and lies and spreads rumors, and he doesn't show up for his daughter's back surgery, for her spinal surgery. That's pretty disloyal, but he expects that loyalty because he's so special. Other people have to give it to him, but he doesn't have to give it back. He also, you can tell, feels entitled to the presence and sacrifice of his wives, even though, again, he's not going to give that back. Like, he expects them to sit around and not be loved and not have any attention and no support and do everything on their own and bring in all the money, but also just, like, get nothing from him in return. He feels entitled to that labor from them. Straight up, I think the man's a pathological liar, you know? If we're just going to be really honest about it. I think he likes to tell lies that make him look better, even when it's just straight up denial of obvious events. But it's all about making him look better, rewriting his role, his negative role in the family's history. Next up, paranoia and suspicion. Wow. He thinks he's so special and important that everybody's out to get him. And he sits and spins wild stories, like when he goes, well, Christine has to talk bad about me to her new man because otherwise the new man won't marry her, because then like the new man would know she got rid of a bad man. That's wackaloon stuff. Literally writes insane stories in his head about everyone's out to get him because he thinks of himself constantly and thinks he's the center of the universe. And last but not least, overdramatic. Everything with him is a performance. It is literally a performance. George Clooney in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a less dramatic, tamed down crap father than this guy. And again, it comes back to that, I'm so important and I'm also the victim. He's pathetic. I could go on and on and on. This is the longest video I've ever done. Trash this man. He needs to go away forever.